Hey guys, True Grit Scott, Bulletproof Saws and BLUESAWS.com. Buttoning up this 460, finally. Been distracted and whatever, so we're back to this. All I did, since I saw you guys last with these videos, was I cut out a gasket because I wanted something 9 or 10 thou thick. Did the gasket, threw gasket dressing on the case, threw gasket dressing on the cylinder, put the gasket on, buttoned everything up, went through, torqued it once. And when I say gasket dressing, I don't mean 3-bond Moto Seal Honda bond. I mean gasket dressing. Now, a lot of guys I know, and we did this more in building, cars and gaskets in trucks and stuff like that, or quads or bigger machines, would use motor oil on gaskets. And I kind of love the guys who do that because it makes getting that gasket off again a lot easier. So there's guys who will drench a gasket with, oil. This is gasket dressing. I'm trying to think of what the name, maybe Halimar Blue might be one of them, but double check that one. I might be not thinking correctly. Anyhow, one of the things when you use the gasket dressing, it has to evaporate out of it. So before I set it down, I let it evaporate a little bit. I torqued it to 133 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds, inch-pounds. And what you're supposed to do is wait 10 minutes and torque it again. And I don't know if that's for the dressing to level. And the dressing's a blue... I got it right here. This is a Permatex one. And it's just, and I don't know if you could see that or not, but it's like a thin blue slime. I don't know a better way to say it. And it starts drying really quickly. The solvents start evaporating out of it, and it's decent stuff. So I'm going to move up. I'm going to get this ready to pressure test while I'm letting that sit for the 10 minutes before I hit it with the torque wrench again. One of the things at this point, this is where I always, on a build, I always love to pressure test a saw before I put the handle on, before I get any further than just dropping the cylinder on. Now, what I did is I have block off plates, and you've seen those before. I even have block off tools if the handle's on it and the carb or the intake boot is on it, you put in the place of the carb. But at this stage, I like to use intake boots. I'll just take an old 44 intake or 46 intake boot, and I filled it with epoxy. This one's filled with epoxy. Sometimes I've filled them with even hot melt glue. Your wife has a hot melt glue gun. What woman doesn't? And you take the hot melt glue gun, you don't let her know, and you fill it up. I put tape on it, filled it up with, this one's epoxy, but you fill it up with something and plug it off, and then you got one to plug off your intake. We're going to just use a regular block off plate for the exhaust. But while I was digging around my box, digging stuff out, I found this. This is half a spark plug. And I broke the insulator out of it, put a tube down into it. There's some saws that are more difficult to pressure test if you can't get to the impulse line for some reason. I often pressure test through the impulse line. If you can't get to it and you're stuck, or if it's a saw you don't have all the right stuff for and you're using a piece of rubber behind the muffler and between the carb and the intake to block it off, and you don't have a way to get to what you want, you could just screw that into the spark plug hole and you could pressure test through there. So it's kind of a little handy thing to have. I have these terrible cases that I keep in my block off stuff. I don't even know where I put it now. There it is. I have a bunch of these cheap little plastic cases I've been using for all this stuff, and I really need to find some better cases for this stuff because you got 2 or 3 of those floating around and you don't know what's in what. But anyhow, I'm yakking too much. I'm going to put the decomp plug in, and I throw Permatex on some stuff. It's the silver stuff. What do you call that? Never sees. Yeah, ANTCs, never sees, depending on who makes it. And I don't know. A lot of guys will throw a little bit 3-bond on them to make sure that they don't leak. I don't think this helps with leaks at all. but I put it on because I'm putting steel into aluminum, and you don't have to do that, guys. I think that's just, you know, me being a little bit wacky. Oh man, I think I left my 13 millimeter outside. I'm certain I left my 13 millimeter outside. Maybe I got one I could use by hand. Nope, that's 12. Yeah, I definitely left that outside. I knew I was going to do that. I was working on it. And that's 14. What are you? Oh, you're a 13. Yeah, maybe we get by. Maybe I got another one in here. I didn't think I did. Easier for me to put it in the socket and put it down in there. So anyhow, that the never sees on that isn't. I do it. I've always done it. They always come back out, but I haven't really seen a ton of those welded in there. Like, I know in a lot of applications when I put steel bolt into an aluminum housing, whether it's, you know, a swing arm for a quad or whatever it is, sometimes they do some kind of chemical, electric, some kind of bond where they almost weld together. So I started doing that. I'm not telling you it's worth doing. It's just, it's something I have on hand, so it's easy enough for me to do. And that's all there is to that. But I also don't think putting a little 3-bond on them is a bad idea, because you know it's going to seal. And I know guys who do it around their plugs all the time. I rely on the crush washers to do their job. And if they don't do their job, I'll get another plug or another decomp plug or another spark plug. It just depends on how you do things, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think I told you guys in the last video, I'm not one of those guys who puts a gasket on with 3-bond or moto seal. It'll seal it. It's just the next guy getting in there is going to have a hell of a time cleaning that off, and he's going to be cursing you. So I don't get cursed by a bunch of people. I don't use it. Plus, I think the gasket should do its job. We will use this and figure out what we're going to do here. I didn't plan this video out. I just know I had to get this done, and I wanted to make the video for you guys, and I've been putting it off because I'm not ready to make the video, yada, yada, yada. And you know what? It won't be a great video. None of the videos are great, so you're not going to be missing anything, fellas. Well, there you go. We'll get that in there. We'll get that somewhere where we can get a driver on it. That's the OEM ring there. You know, this doesn't even have to be perfect. It probably doesn't matter if I put that on upside down. It's going to seal or it's not going to seal. But what I really don't, not that I like the aftermarket ones, because I don't love the aftermarket. They're fine. They work. The OEM one's a little bit better quality, thicker, nicer metal. But what I detest is that it's a flathead screw. I don't think anybody should ever use a flathead screw for anything. You know, unless you're going for a rustic look. I have no use for flathead screws, so I can't stand that. You know, so that's what I'm going to complain, because I'm a whiner. I'm going to complain about the flathead screw on the OEM one, although it is much better metal. I'll button that down. I'll get a plug in it. I'll get that front plate on, and then I will go through. I will torque this one more time just to see if that's what they tell you to do, so I'm going to do it. They must have a reason they're telling me to do it. And a lot of things with these saws, you know, torque specs, where to put Loctite, where to not put Loctite. You know, Stihl tells you in the service manual and IPL. And you don't have to listen. Do what you want, but I'm going to listen because they probably have a reason they did it. You know, they had a failure, something went wrong, it lasts longer, it's more, whatever it is. I tend to listen to manufacturers on most things. I'm sure there's some things that I don't, but I usually have a pretty good reason. But more often than not, those guys should know what they're talking about. A lot of times I'll put a little, for no reason, I put a little 2-stroke on there just to keep it moist. This thing has been used a million times, and it's actually wearing in pretty noticeably the shape of an exhaust port. And I imagine it's going to start wearing through, and I'm going to have to cut another piece of inner tube, which, listen, that ain't the biggest deal in the world. I caution you guys on intake screws. You don't want to strip them out. I mean, it's a repairable problem, but you don't want to. So I go easy on it, and I make sure that I'm not doing anything goofy, cross-threading them, you know, whatever. Let's try to be careful. Today will be the day that I do something stupid, some videoing. And I do want to get out. It's another beautiful day. It's like 55 degrees out and sunny, and man, this winter kicked my ass, and I want to get out there as much as I can. So I think, unless I am forgetting something, and again, that flywheel's just set on there. I could pop that off if we are leaking. I did the seals. Hopefully the seals will hold. Hopefully the case gasket will hold. Hopefully the base gasket's going to hold. Hopefully everything's going to hold for us here. And you're going to see, if you get this positioned, I'm going to wind up blocking here, guys, and I don't have a choice in it. Because as I'm torquing these down, I got to throw my body up against the saw, or it spins around on my bench. So I put it the way I can so I could get it, and I know I'm blocking yous. This isn't that interesting. It's me trying to get a torque wrench into a bolt. Did you hear that click, guys? I mean, there's nothing to these things. I can't hold it. My ribs aren't hitting it enough. Come on. One more. I don't know. I don't think it was any different than before. It's hard to tell. The other thing is the way I have this set up with this torque wrench, I think this is awfully long. And I don't like just putting it in there and cranking on it. So I kind of try to support it here so I'm not, I mean, granted it's going through a cylinder, I realize that, but I still can't help myself. I want to support it as I'm doing it, which makes me want to lean over it more and make a bad video. Thing I'll tell you about torque wrenches, guys, and maybe you probably all know it already, when you're done with them, you relieve the pressure on them. At least I do. That's the way I had learned it, that you don't leave it on whatever setting you had it on, because it will weaken the spring, wear the spring, something with the spring in it. So I undo it, tighten it back up so it doesn't move, and it is gone. And just a little tip on a torque wrench. I probably told it to you guys before. Now, let's see, what are we going to do for a spark plug? I had a Champion in it, and I don't, what was it, a RCJ6Y, which I don't use Champions, I don't know. I would think it would be a 7 to match an NGK. I have about 8,000 Farmer Tech spark plugs that I use, just because I'm going to be taking it in and out, and I don't want to ruin that crush washer, so I use these, and when they start getting crappy on the crush washer, I just toss them in the bin, because I swap everything over to the NGKs that I have. And I don't get crazy on spark plugs, guys. I don't have a ton of them fail. I have buddies who love these Denso plugs and, you know, different triple electrode things, and I don't like any of those. Those are the only ones I don't like, but I have guys who swear by them. I just go with the NGKs, and if it's a Champion, I don't use them, but I'm sure they're not too bad. And a lot of the Bosch that I'm seeing lately are all China made. Not that I have a problem with that if they're good, but again, I just use my NGKs. They've been good enough to me. There, that doesn't have to be too tight. I don't know if I ever talked about it, guys. I love these long scrunches. You know, they're 200 millimeters as opposed to the 100, especially if you gotta go through the whole steel intake boot thing and you can't get to it because this is a little too short. These are wonderful. So I use those a lot. Granted, they're bigger in your pocket when you're carrying them around, but we are buttoned up. We are retorqued. We could probably pump some air in there and hope for the best. Let's keep our fingers crossed here, guys. That'd be nice if this just goes nice and smooth for me. Seems like a lot to ask. The days I don't expect it to go smooth, it does, and the days that everything went perfect, well, that's the day it won't go smooth. So let's see what we got. Knock on wood. I'll think of some other voodoo stuff to give me luck. Heh. What do you think, guys? Did she drop like a rock there, or is she holding? What did my expression tell you? I'm just trying to trick you guys now. It's holding. So vacuum's looking pretty decent. And again, I think I've said it in other videos, and I gotta find, there was a good YouTube video where the guy, you know, no bullshit, didn't fiddle around for, you know, an hour, like some of us big mouth people might. And he told you the rules of vac pressure, leak down testing small engines. And it has to hold vacuum for 3 minutes, and then it could lose a pound, but it can't lose another for another couple minutes. I want everything just to keep the pressure the whole time. Keep it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or if I walk away for an hour, that's what I really want to see. That's somewhat unrealistic on every single saw. However, that's the goal, is that they hold pressure indefinitely, or overnight, or for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. We slowly lost a little bit there, so can't tell on vacuum. I have no way to really tell what is giving me a slow leak. Is it the decomp? Is it the spark plug? Did I not tighten down the intake boot enough? So when we go to pressure, that might tell us. All right, we went right up to 8. And it's holding pretty tight. I am down a half a pound, 3/4 of a pound, hitting 7. So I have a slight air leak. Where are we leaking? Somebody stole my spray. Oh, I just put it over here. And now we get into spraying the saw, so I'll wind up spraying this. I wonder where we're leaking. Let me get you back up to 8. And 8's not the number. I just tend to go to 8. 7's the number. 7 pounds. 7 pounds of vacuum, 7 pounds of pressure. So we'll go up to 8. So give me a second before it goes down at all. I guess I should have put Moto Seal around that decomp plug. All right. He's bubbling. Well, let's see if I could just tighten her down a little bit. I know I didn't wail on it. Hug this thing again to turn this. Yep, that's what we do here, guys. We hug saws. You've heard of tree huggers, because I'm a saw hugger. All right, are you going to stop? We'll blow our bubbles away. That might have stopped it, because it was still at 7 when I just looked at it. We'll go back up to 8, and I'm not even going to spray it, because I hate getting the soapy water on it, because then I got to go hit it with the compressor and blow it off. Which, I guess you could leave soapy water on a saw, but again, weird quirks. Oh. we are dead solid. Decomp issue. And again, I always suspect the decomp first, crush washer on a spark plug second. When you get a cylinder, you know, inspect those mating surfaces. You inspect things, and I looked at everything. It looked good. So, because it might not be the plug or the decomp plug. It could be just the casting could have a little divot in it, and then you have a decision to make. Are you going to fill it with a little bit of something, you know, however you do it to make it work, or is it so bad it's a return, or, you know, whatever it is. We don't see a ton of that, though. We really don't get a ton of returns on that. That's holding rock solid. I'm probably going to leave this pressured up and go do some other things. Next video will be rear handle, clutch, button it up, and it should be a pretty quick video with everything else we have to do on there. And I don't think I have any huge tricks. I'm going to tell you what, when you're building a kit saw, don't forget that little piece of rubber there, that little rubber AV, which can be a pain in the neck to get in there, because I've had so many guys build the saw, put the handle on, they got this little rubber nib. What is this for? Yeah, that's a pain in the ass. You got to take the handle off again to put that on. What else do I tell people? I think I did it to myself, and I would advise you guys not to. When I'm putting the AVs back in, I push them in 3/4 of the way because the handle goes in easier. I think I gorillaed these back in, which you get the handle in. It's just easier when they're halfway in, and then you pop them the rest of the way in once you put the handle in. That's a little tip for you there. What else? I think this should go pretty smooth from here on out. So that was good news. I get to enjoy the day, and I'm not chasing air leaks. We're still dead on 8, which is excellent. And just because it's dead on 8 with pressure, I still have to re-vacuum test it, and it could have a different vacuum leak. Chances are it doesn't, but it could. So, and I see vacuum leaks more. I like doing vacuum first just because of the seals. So it's one of those things. So we're not done with pressure testing, although I want to see if this holds. You know, I'll come back in a half hour and look. Did it hold? Come back in an hour, which is way overkill for a pressure test. I can do it, and I will do it. So there you go on that. Anyhow, guys, just a quick update video. We will probably do the rest of this video later today or tomorrow, because this fella's gonna strangle me about this saw because I've taken way too long on it, and that happens sometimes. He's a nice enough fella. I don't think he's gonna strangle me, but I wouldn't blame him if he did. Anyhow, guys, True Grit Scott, Bulletproof Saws, and BLUESAWS.com. Thanks for watching. Stay safe.